it's time. Thank you for being here for our third and final session. It's going to be a really good one. We've got lots of amazing speakers. So I want to start by introducing not only the sponsor of the session, but our incredible moderator for this session, Kathleen Mack. Kathleen has been a part of the Austin, yes, woo, indeed. Kathleen has been a part of the Austin nonprofit community for 20 years and was generous enough to serve on the She Thrives event committee this year. Kathleen believes we can make thoughtful, personal decisions about our lifestyle starting today by learning best practices to accommodate our aging bodies, even if it can be hard work. So please join me in welcoming Kathleen.
I don't know what else to say, other than, and I have notes, because I don't usually speak in public. I speak a lot, but not in public. I'm both delighted and honored to introduce three talented women who are experienced and spend their professional lives making a big difference in the people they treat. They are here to give you information, hopefully to apply to your daily existence, to help your lives stay strong and healthy. Connie has spent her career caring for women and their health. Dr. Pugh brings her education and experience to address inflammation and common diseases as we age. And then Leila brings her education and experience helping women and men address their physical care, both preventative and proactive. All these people focus on helping people become best versions of themselves. The whole goal is to help you and me and everyone else here become the best versions of ourselves. I hope you learn things to care for yourself in ways that maybe you haven't done before, with the goal of you becoming the best version that you want to become so that you can positively care for others. And I also have a disclaimer here. Though there are topics we will cover today that apply to everyone, it's important to note that the doctors and practitioners on this stage have a scope of work that primarily focuses on individuals who are born biologically as women. Their expertise will be spoken from that lens and directed to that population. And so we're going to start with Dr. Pugh, then Connie will take over, and then Leila. And we've only got 15 minutes per person, but we will have 15 minutes worth of Q&A at the end. So if you want to take notes and ask questions, we invite that. And I want to say a special hello to Lisa Fielder, who is watching from home. She was, yes, she told me this morning or yesterday that she had been tested for COVID, so she couldn't be here. But she's here online. Okay, Dr. Pugh, are you ready?
Hello. I'm Dr. Theresa Pugh. I'm a board-certified family physician for almost 20 years now. I work at Central Family Practice where I take care of all ages. And while I prescribe medications, I also really enjoy working with patients on their lifestyle so that maybe we can not use medications when it's appropriate. So I am going to talk to you about caregiving for yourself. Because we all know the saying, if you don't take care of yourself, it's hard to take care of someone else. And yet, when you're in a caregiving role, it's so easy to put your needs aside and just say, well, tomorrow I'll start exercising, or tomorrow I'll start eating salads, or tomorrow I will call and schedule that mammogram that I need to do. And you just keep putting it off and not doing it. We all do that. So caring for yourself has got to be an active process because no one is going to do it for you until you're so sick that you have to have someone help you. That's so important to remember. But you can take steps now to significantly postpone chronic illnesses and ensure that you're able to fulfill your caregiving roles and live a longer and fuller life. So the root of most chronic illness is inflammation. Inflammation is a general term that refers to a response of the immune system to injury or illness. And inflammation is actually crucial for survival because if we have a sprained ankle and it doesn't heal, it's going to be really hard to get away from predators or maybe walk far enough to gather food. So it's really important that our body has this process. When you're sick or have an injury, what happens is the damaged tissue will release chemicals into the bloodstream, sending out a distress signal to the rest of the body, and then the cycle of inflammation is turned on. Those signals will direct cells from your immune system to come into the damaged tissue and repair and rebuild it. And those signals continue until the tissue is repaired, at which point different signals come in and tell the cycle of inflammation to turn back off again. If we don't turn inflammation back off, then we might continue to have pain or stiffness or limited mobility. And so if we continue to have frequent injuries or illnesses or even stressors, the inflammation process just keeps getting turned on, and it becomes a chronic thing that is having a hard time turning itself back off again. And when the body senses stress, our endocrine system will release hormones into the bloodstream that tell our body to get ready to fight or flee. So all of this is a very primitive process that was set up a long time ago, because if you are being stalked by a tiger, we need chemicals like cortisol and adrenaline to come into our body. They get squirted out of the adrenal glands and they enter the bloodstream almost instantaneously when there's a threat. And those hormones have a lot of effects through our bodies. So they dilate our pupils, they raise our blood pressure, they raise our heart rate, and they raise our respiratory rate. But another thing that they do is they also release sugar into the bloodstream, because our muscles are going to need fuel if we're going to fight or flee, right? So if you think about chronic stress, we have a lot of blood sugar getting dumped into the bloodstream over a long period of time. That can start to cause issues. The hormones that do this process also activate the signals of inflammation, because if you're bitten by the tiger, your body needs to be prepared to try and heal that injury just as quickly as possible. And these processes have kept us from going extinct for thousands of years. They're very important. But the problem is, in modern day, is our body does not know the difference between a tiger attack and getting cut off in traffic. It's just like, tiger attack! So our primitive brains are always searching for threats, and they're scanning the environment and looking for what might be a danger. And when we're isolated and lonely, and you're the only person looking out for yourself, the primitive parts of our brain become even more hypervigilant. Research actually shows that loneliness will cause a person to perceive things in their environment as more threatening than it actually is. And caregiving can be a very isolating situation. So while it doesn't seem as dramatic as a tiger attack, those chronic daily stresses will add up. If you're worried about a loved one, if you have financial worries, or worried about your job, you just are having little tiny constant tiger attacks. And that is a cumulative process over time. There's actually a term called the allostatic load, and that refers to that cumulative effect of all of these physical stresses and life events. If you think of your body like a sink, and stress hormones are the water coming into the sink, if you're pouring water into that sink, so if you're pouring stress hormones into your body at a rate faster than your body can clear it, eventually that water overflows and floods the house, right? And that's what happens to our bodies. So if we keep pouring stress hormones into our body, eventually it's going to start to affect your entire body. And the way that affects people is different. So it will manifest differently in people depending on their genetic predispositions, their diet, and their environment. So one person might develop high blood pressure, and another person might develop diabetes. The diabetes can develop because those frequent cortisol-driven dumps of sugar into the bloodstream eventually just overwhelm the ability of your body to make enough insulin to keep that blood sugar under control. And as we get older, it is harder and harder for our bodies to keep up with healing this damage, and it's also harder for us to clear toxins. So at some point, it catches up with you. And we all need help in reducing these stressors. So it's so important to assemble your team of caregivers. Like, you might need someone to come in and relieve you for some self-care time. It's really important to stay strong by exercising regularly and to do strength training. You will actually lose 10% of your muscle mass every decade unless you are actively trying not to. And you have to work really hard at it. And I'm sure Leila will address this. Staying strong will help you prevent injury. If you're having to help someone walk or having to help them get in and out of bed, I see a lot of injuries from that. So if you stay strong, you're going to be less likely to get injured. Let a personal trainer help you if you need accountability, or just get a friend to keep you accountable. Get someone to help you out with that process. And if you get an injury, see your doctor, go to physical therapy, make sure that you get that injury healed up, because chronic pain is a very significant physical stressor, and if you can't sleep due to pain, your body cannot heal. It's so important to see your doctor for a yearly checkup and keep up with your cancer screenings. That's easy. Get your pap smear, get your mammogram, get your colon cancer screenings done, get your blood pressure checked, have some blood work to look at your blood sugar and cholesterol levels. If you're starting to have blood sugar regulation issues or high cholesterol or mental health issues, get that treated early. Don't let it pile up and don't let it keep going. Heart disease is the #1 killer of women. I'm gonna repeat it. Heart disease is the #1 killer of women. It kills more women than breast cancer, lung cancer, colon cancer, pancreatic cancer, and all of the other cancers combined. 1 in 3 women will die of some form of cardiovascular disease. And that's preventable. So the same process that causes heart attacks also causes strokes and also causes the vascular form of dementia. We can absolutely postpone the progression of these diseases, if not prevent them outright, if we jump on it early. So don't wait until a problem occurs. Just start now by working on finding the right diet for you, establishing your exercise program, getting adequate sleep, and keeping your emotional health in check. And don't smoke, there's just no reason to. Alcohol is also a big trap. We think it helps us cope, we think it's fun, but really it's a cellular toxin in disguise that strains our liver, it adds to that allostatic load, and it directly damages our cells. Your liver will actually preferentially metabolize alcohol over all other toxins. So it will prevent you from detoxing other things. And alcohol also raises your blood sugar. So if you're stressed and you've got a lot of cortisol and you're also drinking, your blood sugar is gonna be even worse and harder to manage. I think it's so important to listen to your body's messages. If you eat a food that gives you energy and makes you feel clear and makes you feel good, that's a nourishing food for you, so keep eating it. But if you eat a food that makes you feel sluggish and have a headache and a stomach ache, then that food is probably causing inflammation. So just listen to your body's clues about that. Nature actually supplied us with all of the nutrients that we need. She gave us sweets in the form of fruits. And so eat more foods that grow on trees, bushes, and in the ground. Try to not eat stuff that was coming out of a factory or put into a plastic container. Be sure you're getting adequate protein from plants and animals, and eat healthy fats like fatty fish, nuts, avocados, and olive oil. But if you need one rule to follow today, avoid refined sugar and flour. That is probably the most inflammatory stuff that we eat. So sugar, cakes, candies, cookies, bread. I'm saying this right after Halloween, right? All of those foods are just devoid of nutrients and full of ingredients that trigger inflammation, so try to avoid them as much as possible. I wanted to talk a little bit more about blood sugar because it's so important. When our blood sugar goes up and we're sedentary, those glucose molecules, those sugar molecules, are actually very sticky. So when they get into the bloodstream, they're kind of like a toddler who just ate pancakes with syrup and they have syrup all over their hands and they're running around the house touching stuff. That's kind of what blood sugar does. It runs around your body and makes everything all sticky. So the glucose molecule literally will stick to your red blood cells, and your white blood cells look at that and are like, that red blood cell looks like it has a parasite on it. Maybe I should attack it. So sugar will actually create an inflammatory response because it sticks to other cells in your body. So then your immune system is running around trying to clean all this up. So if you eat something sweet every day or multiple times a day, your immune system is having to run around and try and clean up your blood vessels. And so over time, what happens is those sticky particles, fat and cholesterol, will start to stick to that as well. And that's what forms a plaque that clogs up your arteries. So it's gonna reduce your circulation and create inflammation. And over time, it just gets harder and harder for your body to keep up with all those toddlers running around touching stuff. So eventually this stuff catches up with us, and that's really kind of the basis of cardiovascular disease. So if we go back to the sink analogy, that our body's a sink and stress hormones is the water that's coming into the sink, if that sink has a stopper, so the sink is filling up over time, What you would normally do if you see the sink filling up is you'd go turn the water off for a little while, right? You'd let the sink like settle down. And that's what we need to do with our bodies to keep that allostatic load from overwhelming us. So when we relax, we're turning off the water. We're allowing time for our body to stop producing stress hormones. And sleep is essentially when we pull the stopper out of the drain, right? That's the time when the body can really rest. During deep sleep, the body's janitors come in and actually clean up toxins and cellular debris, and they also heal and repair cells. Alzheimer's, we're all scared of it, right? Alzheimer's dementia involves the accumulation of excess inflammatory proteins in the brain. Sleep is one of the times that your body goes in and cleans up that protein. So don't skimp on it. Cancer cells, they actually pop up in our bodies quite often, but the immune system has cells that literally hunt down and kill cancer cells. During the day, your immune system's kind of busy, like fighting off germs from the bathroom or from anything else you touched. And if you're busy and your body thinks that you're being attacked by a tiger, it's really not gonna hunt down and kill cancer cells because the tiger is a much more immediate threat, right? So we've gotta take time away from the tiger attacks, and we've gotta sleep so our body can hunt down and kill cancer cells. So when you're caregiving, those everyday stresses are just adding up over time, and that's why you've gotta take, even if it's just a couple seconds out of your busy day, to rest. So getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep is the best way to do that, but you can also take little times to be still. And the being still is important because our phones and our computers and our TVs, they just take our quiet time away and take our focus away from ourselves. So remember to unplug. That is so important. Just take a few minutes, sit in a quiet space, meditate, focus on your breathing, maybe listen to a guided imagery, or do what I call outsource it. I outsource my meditation to my acupuncturist. I let her do it. Or maybe it's your massage therapist. You can also go sit in nature. Nature helps to ground us and reset us. So go sit under a tree or take a really, slow stroll in the woods. Anything like that to just unplug and take some deep breaths. So remember to find your tribe, combat loneliness, and seek connection from the people that help you, that energize you, and care for you. Because when you're a care partner for someone else, the stronger and healthier you are, the stronger and healthier they will be. We all need our own caregivers, and the best thing you can do is assemble your team. All right, I'm gonna turn it over. Thank you. I'm gonna turn it over to one of my team members. This is Connie Ryan, and hormone wizard, and one of my gurus. So take it away.
So I'm gonna stand up because it's easier. And can you hear me now? Yeah. So I need my audio visual for myself, and so these people can see me too. So I'm Connie. I'm a women's health nurse practitioner, and I also work at Central Family Practice. And I've been taking care of women. I was a midwife before I became a nurse practitioner. So I've been taking care of women for more than 40 years, a long time. I'm going to talk about, just hormones 101. And a lot of this might be, I just want you to get the gestalt of it, the whole big feel of it, because many of us never really understand what's happening in our bodies with our hormones, even though they run us, essentially, from start to finish in our lifetimes. One of the things that I would like to think about with hormones is that it's a feedback system. Our hormones are things that kind of take hormones and messages around from one organ to another. So the ones I'm going to talk about mainly today are your pituitary hormone that talks to your ovaries, it talks to your thyroid, and that goes back up and talks to your pituitary, and that's a well-oiled machine that works really well. There was a really wonderful book written years ago about menopause. It was called Screaming to be Heard, and it was written by a woman who was a psychiatrist and a menopause specialist, and she was talking about how your brain is screaming at your ovaries, and your ovaries are screaming back, and it can make you a little nutty. So your ovaries make a few things. They make estrogen, which is a strong antidepressant. It softens things, it makes your skin soft, it makes your general self-talk. It's what makes us women, that it makes us not kill our children so that we don't throw them against walls when they're screaming and crying. And it also makes us be nice to our partners most of the time, unless you're perimenopausal or in early menopause and it's going up and down, and then it might make you want to kill them. It also helps us build bone. It's really important that during the years that we have estrogen, that we're building bone, and that's weight-bearing exercise, and estrogen and testosterone help to make that happen. Once you go through menopause and your estrogen's going away, or especially if you don't take extra estrogen after menopause, then you go into a bone loss state unless you're really working on keeping it up. So, and if you have a family history, it's the main reason that a woman ends up in a nursing home is if she falls and breaks a major bone. And it's, for those of us who work with aging, we know after the fall, it's really a very difficult time after you fall. So we want to not fall, we want to keep our bones healthy, and we're going to talk about that here in a minute too. Progesterone is something that your body makes after it ovulates. So when you're young and you're not ovulating yet, you're pre-puberty, you don't have progesterone. After menopause, you don't have progesterone because that's something the ovary makes only after ovulation. It does help to protect the uterus. It causes the lining to build up and slough off every cycle. It makes it ready for eggs so that you are able to implant an egg if you want to be pregnant, or if you don't want to make the egg a good place to implant. It helps to balance estrogen, so it's like estrogen and progesterone work together in the second part of your cycle, and it helps with sleep. It has a sleep-inducing kind of response, especially when you take it for hormone replacement therapy. Testosterone is made by the ovary too, and it helps to build bone, it helps to build muscle, it gives you drive and energy, and it also helps with your labia and your vulva and the vagina and keeping those healthy, your bladder, as well as estrogen. So those are things that are really important to maintain after menopause. There was a great article in the New York Times recently about the forgotten spots for women, that obviously it's like, oh, that doesn't matter that you don't have estrogen in that spot. Nobody talks about not needing estrogen or not having your gums and stuff being healthy. Well, it's the same in our vaginal tissue and our bladder. Those are estrogen-dependent spots and testosterone-dependent tissues, and they can easily be taken care of and fixed and help to be healthy after menopause. So the next thing I'm just going to really quickly talk about is, what happens in your menstrual cycle when you start having periods. I just remember being a girl that me and my friend Debbie were in 7th grade. The reason we were best friends is we were both the girls with breasts. We went from no breasts to these giant breasts in about 5 minutes, it felt like. And it was just like, we would hold the towel in the shower for each other because, the girls that wanted breasts were upset with us, and we were just like, oh my God, we don't want these things. And it was just, it was a hard time. So that's one of the first things that happens is you start to get breasts, you get softer. That's all the effects of estrogen. Once you start having periods, then the first part of your cycle, your estrogen and testosterone is low, you don't have any progesterone. When you're ovulating, you have this huge surge of estrogen that happens, and it gives you this clear, stretchy mucus. I call it sperm highway for my young people. If you know any young people, you say, when you see that clear, stretchy mucus when you wipe, when you want to have sex, that's the very time that it's a sperm highway, and you use a condom, and spermicide, and birth control pills. My oldest granddaughter, who I raised, we have a joke: whole body condom, spermicide, birth control pills, and emergency contraception. She has it down as a little, I know, Nana, I know. So that's also a time that you feel pretty and sexy, and your hair looks better, and you feel some desire generally, is when women want to initiate sex is around ovulation, and also right before your period. But if you're perimenopausal or you're in early menopause, it also could give you headaches and make you feel like you want to hurt people again, and feel just like, oh my gosh, your breasts feel like they're going to explode, and you don't feel good. Because you can have estrogen twice the amount that you normally would have at that time. And testosterone also rises then, so that's another reason that people tend to have more desire at that part of their cycle. Right after ovulation, immediately your ovary that was that makes hormones starts to make progesterone, and that is there to cause the lining to build up so that it's ready for an egg to implant if you're pregnant, and it also matures the uterine lining so that it protects it so you don't get uterine cancer as you get older, and also so it sloughs off and you have your regular cyclic menstrual period. So ovulation to your period, 14 days, plus or minus 1 day, immutable fact of nature. Unless you're pregnant or have an ovarian cyst or something, you're going to have a period. Right before your period, you have, or about a week before your period, your estrogen and progesterone start to go away. You have this little bump of estrogen, and then they both start to go away. And that's generally when people start to have some symptoms of PMS if they're going to have them. And that usually is because those things are happening not quite in sync. And we'll talk about that in 1 second. Then you start your period, and I know for myself, when I was having cycles when I was young, I would just be like, oh my God, everything's fine now. And most people by 2 days into their period feel that way. Some people, it's not so much, but I used to just love that. Oh, it's all going to be good now. Because, you know, we're done for this cycle. And, you know, even if it's just a few days of feeling not quite so good, it can be difficult. In perimenopause and menopause, especially perimenopausal women that's usually from late mid-40s or early to mid-40s, but it can also start in myself. I was in my late 30s when I started to go through early menopause. And you will have where you don't ovulate all the time. So you have a lot of estrogen trying to ovulate. Your pituitary is screaming back saying, no, 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 more. So you make more. And then it's just constant making more and more estrogen, but you don't ovulate. And so your estrogen's going up and then down, and then up and then down, but you don't have progesterone to balance it out. You don't always have the testosterone coming up, or you have testosterone rising with it, and you feel irritable, angry, you want to hurt people, you want to, your breasts feel like they're going to explode, and then 2 days later you're just like, well, what just happened? I'm fine now. And that can happen over and over in the times where you're not ovulating every month. And that can go on usually for 5 to 10 years before you actually go through menopause. Progesterone is also not always there, so you miss, if you don't ovulate, you don't have progesterone, remember, so you miss that kind of balance that you get from the progesterone, which a lot of times is what causes the breast tenderness and fluid retention and all the things that happen around or in that part of your cycle. Testosterone also is overall kind of lower because you're not having that little bump around ovulation, and it can sometimes be more expressed when your estrogen's low. So a lot of times people start getting acne. You know, it's like, what's that about? Acne, when you've never had acne your whole life, all of a sudden you've got acne. That is one of the reasons that can happen. Poor sleep, when your estrogen and progesterone are down and your pituitary is yelling at it works mostly at night, it's screaming at your ovaries are screaming back, and they're having a little fight at night. You drink some wine, then your cortisol's off, your blood sugar's off, and then you think, oh, I'm gonna sleep really good. And you sleep for about an hour, and then you wake at exactly 3:10 in the morning, and you can't go back to sleep. That's why. And that's probably the most common thing that people start to make a note of in their minds, like, oh, I do that, and that happens. I mean, I drink wine until menopause, and then I was like, this is not worth it. You know, I've been waking up in the middle of the night with hot flashes and not being able to go back to sleep. You know, when you can go, oh, if I do that, that happens. It can be a powerful reminder of why you don't want to. Now, sometimes you don't listen to yourself, but in general, it really is very helpful. So with hormones, hormone replacement therapy, we can add back hormones in perimenopause and menopause, and we get a lot of really good benefits from that. And I know from the Women's Health Study that many people, especially in my age group, was very popular and really It changed the course of women's lives, I think, in the late 90s, of saying, hey, you know, it's going to kill everybody. Hormones are bad, it's bad for you, you shouldn't do it. And the reality is that the study that was done on Premarin, which is not normal to humans. It's an oral estrogen made from horse urine. There's also 32 different kinds. There's also Provera or progestin, which is also not normal to humans. And that study was also done on women that were older, 10 years into menopause, some of them. And what they found was that it hurt people. And so they said, oh, so this is bad, it's going to hurt everybody. And I was lucky to have been at that conference when it was presented at the North American Menopause Society, and the man that wrote the endocrinology book we all use in the United States said, this doesn't make sense. I don't believe that's true, but I'm going to wait and get more information. And that was, I thought, one of the most brilliant moves and helped me as a practitioner to say, wait a minute, let's wait and get more information on this. And what we know now is that if you take estrogen topically, not orally, it doesn't increase your risk of a heart attack or a stroke. If you use natural bioidentical estradiol that your ovaries make, that is commercially available you don't have to have anything special to get that. And progesterone that's normal to our bodies, and you do the estrogen topically with a patch or a gel, and the progesterone orally, testosterone also topically, that you have good benefits and really very few downside to using it. Now, some of the things that I gave you guys all a handout about, it says what happened. And the reason I wanted everybody to have this is one of the things that happens with hormones that we all don't really think about too much are, as Dr. Pugh talked about, all the things that cause disruption in our body. So stress, alcohol, poor sleep, a low fiber diet, high glucose, drinking Cokes, your Starbucks in the morning with sugar in it, plastics and chemicals, especially hair straighteners and chemicals that are especially used on African American women's hair, is very high in chemicals that increase estrogen, that act like estrogen in our body, and they're not estrogen. But they increase our risk of uterine cancer. In fact, there's a new study that just came out that's showing young African American women with uterine cancer that at times that is very unusual. And they are pretty sure that it's from using hair straighteners from a young age. So that's one of the things that you think, oh, how can that hurt? But in actuality, those hormones, those chemicals are going into our bodies and into our children's bodies and having effects like hormones. They're not the good effects of the hormones, they're the bad effects of the hormones. Also, tobacco and not moving. Not moving is probably the worst thing you can do. So, one thing I have to do for myself is I've had to literally say, Connie, you're going to put on your shoes and walk out the door. And if I don't walk out the door, you go, well, tomorrow you're still going to put on your shoes and you're going to walk out that door. And if you stay in a regular habit of when you do it, even if it's for 1 minute, over time, you will finally walk out the door. And you will finally walk around the block. And then maybe you might walk an hour someday, and sometimes. But if you always have the habit of you get up in the morning and you walk out the door, you get nature, you get movement, you get some sunlight in your eyes, and you are establishing a normal habit. And that helps to mitigate many of the things that are negative in the bad guy list. So that's a list of all the bad guys and so when you feel bad, if you look at that and go, oh, what happened? Did I just have, did I just have something that made me feel bad? Did I eat something that made me feel bad? Those are things that we want to have less of so that our hormones are our own hormones, not ones that we're taking in that aren't real hormones. So in terms of osteoporosis, death, cancer, heart disease, the bad guys that we're all, most women that come to see me are just terrified of breast cancer. They're sure they're gonna get breast cancer. It's just like, when am I gonna get it? I know I'm gonna get it, all my friends have it. And the reality is that, many of us will get breast cancer. The good news is about breast cancer as we get older is old lady breast cancer is not generally aggressive, and it isn't usually the thing that kills you. Now, it doesn't mean you won't get it, but it's not going to be the thing that kills you generally. Heart disease is the thing that will kill you. And for most of us, what is it, 1 in 3, that's going to be the thing. So taking hormones in physiologic amounts, normal amounts that your body has normally had over their lifetime, which is what you usually have in the first part of your menstrual cycle and right before your period starts again, there's no increased risk of getting breast cancer. It's a neutral effect. Now, if you have an estrogen-dependent tumor or a progesterone-dependent tumor, it can make it grow, but the actual death rate is lower on hormones than off. Also, you have a 30 to 50% decreased risk in colon cancer. You have a decreased risk in cardiovascular disease and all-cause mortality, so you're less likely to die on it than off. And it helps to prevent bone loss and especially to prevent fracture. So keeping your bones healthy and keeping your fracture, it's been shown that not only to decrease fracture because of what happens to your bone, but just actually falling, it's less. Delay in type 2 diabetes, it increases insulin sensitivity. It helps with, this is probably the biggest thing for most of us. The second fear is, are we going to get dementia and Alzheimer's? Are we going to have cognitive decline? It helps to prevent and delay cognitive decline. So if you have family history or you have the ApoE gene that might make you at risk, or you just have the bad luck of having microvascular changes from cardiovascular disease in your brain, then it's going to be helpful to decrease your risk by starting early and staying on hormones. Alcohol increases your risk of, it's more than 1 drink a day, increases your risk of breast cancer by 30%. So it's much more likely that, and most of us are just like, well, you're not taking my wine away, But in terms of what we're going to be afraid of, you get a lot of benefits from hormones. There's very few plus sides to alcohol. There's kind of, she says not. So, now my mom would beg to differ. She was a big Scotch drinker, and she went to the end with her Scotch. So, you're welcome.
Hello, everybody. I have had a holistic personal training business for a couple of decades in different states, and have worked with a lot of different people from all walks of life with different ailments, cancers, pregnancy, Parkinson's, autoimmune conditions in different stages of their lives. And more recently, I've also worked, actually Kathleen here is one of my clients, and there's another one, Candy, over there in the audience. And I have helped them using the method called the Aldoa method. And the Aldoa method, it was created by a French osteopath, Dr. Guy Boyer. He uses the fascial chains of the body. They are stretches, and they are one of the best tools that you could have in your toolbox to mitigate gravitational forces on the body from postural issues or scoliosis, sitting at desks too long, forward head postures, all of the modern day ailments that have an effect on the body negatively. And the Aldoa method, they're very specific about my little buddy here to kind of show you the spine, your spine. I'll just hold it like this. So the Aldoa helps with these segments here in the, oh, thank you. It helps to create space, and it's a stretch, and so with the gravitational forces, compresses these little spaces here. And with the Aldoa stretches, it's important to give space in there, and it helps with the disc bulges and bring water in there. So you can think of these discs as kind of like a little sponge. And we want to get water in there. And so doing these stretches, you're gonna be pulling from the bottom and the top apart like this. And I would show you one of these Aldoas, but they're a little bit complicated to get into right here. There are some good places to look on YouTube, and I do have also on my social media page a couple of these stretches. And you can ask Candy how much she just loves to hate doing these Aldoas. But she loves to play pickleball. And so with that, she comes in and says, my hip hurts and this hurts. And I said, well, here we go. And she said, oh, I love hating these so much. So they're really great. And one of what happens with, that they also help with scoliosis. It's very interesting, you talked about inflammation. And the Aldoas, Dr. Givoy found that they have a visceral response to the organ system and also to the nervous system. And so if you have seen a lot of people now, their shoulders are molded forward and they're compressed through the rib cage, the upper part of the spine, and through the chest. Well, that can create a lot of compression also to the pericardium, to the heart and the lungs. So if you want to open that up and open that space up, then the Aldoas and myofascial stretches can also help to do that. And they can empower you because you learn these and do them for a few minutes a day. And it helps with strength as well. So you're able to just walk better and not feel such joint pain and back pain, disc bulges. And they're really amazing. And with the pelvic floor, I'm going to jump into the pelvic floor and pregnancy and what happens with the pelvic floor. So pelvic floor, imagine you have, I'm going to hold this and hold this. You have this bowl that's right down here. Let's see how I get all this problem. Okay, the bowl is kind of right down here, and you have your sexual organs, and you have your bladder, and you have your anus, and what happens with pregnancy and also postural issues or pelvic floor dysfunction, torsions in the pelvis that can stem from chronic constipation, a pelvic floor weakening in those muscles, in the obturator internus and levator ani, different muscles that are down here, can be also from pregnancy and from if you have an anterior pelvic tilt, so the gravitational forces, the tilt goes, yeah, this doesn't move very well, but if the anterior tilt goes, if your pelvis goes back this way and there's a torsion, it can create a weakening in the pelvic floor as well and in those muscles and can lead to incontinence issues. And if you've ever had children and sneezed or jumped on trampolines and go, what's going on down there? Feel something. Then you know that, well, that's a little bit of a weakening of the pelvic floor. Now, I have to say that I can do pull-ups and push-ups and think I'm super strong, okay? But I went jumping on trampolines with my cute little niece over there one day, and I was like, what's happening down there? And realized that, well, my pelvic floor wasn't as strong as the rest of my muscles. So I had to go back and do some strengthening exercises, which I'm going to give you a couple of exercises that you can do and take home with you. And so everybody just face forward, nice and tall, and just think about your posture. And these are for the guys too. You know, guys can do these. Yep, you can do it too. That's right. So always think about your posture and kind of tuck your pelvis under just a little bit, and then nice and tall. And what you're going to do, so most of you will know what a Kegel is, but if you don't, it's that peeing sensation where you're going to hold the pee and then you're going to contract your glutes. So you hold the P, and then you squeeze your glutes, then you're going to let go of the glutes, and then let go of that P sensation. So you do that 3 sets of 10, so you squeeze, do that Kegel, squeeze, and then contract your glutes, let go of your glutes, let go of that P sensation. You would do 3 sets of 10 of those. You can also do the same thing with doing the same, you can squeeze the P, and you kind of try to pull your knees together, but don't let them come together. So you're contracting the adductors. And then you let go of the adductors, and then you let go of that P sensation. And then do that again. And then you, again, 3 sets of 10. And then, to add on to that, there's so much, there's just so much. You would then do the lower abdominals series as well. So you would contract the lower abdominals, the P, let go of the P, and then the lower abdominals. And so those are 2, 3 exercises you can do at home to help strengthen your pelvic floor. And I'm going to move on to the balance. As everybody knows, and we've talked about as well, balance is so important as we age. So if an elderly person falls in their house, it can be really dangerous if nobody's around or there's no phone around to call for help. And you can actually train your righting and tilting reflexes, or your balance, pretty easy, a few minutes a day, and I'm going to give you one of those to do as well. So everyone stand up, and if anyone has heels on, you may want to just hold on to something, or, all right, and she knows all about this. She has been doing this, it's her favorite. So everyone just stand on one foot. Yep, and if you can't stand on that one foot, very easily, just hold on to something, okay? And then you would just time yourself for about 30 seconds. And if that's super easy for you, then you could get a weight, a dumbbell, and start, will you demonstrate for us, please? Yes, you can do some bicep curls, or you can press up to the ceiling. Yep, on one foot, yep. Yeah, you can press up, and you can also, if you have children or a puppy, you can make it fun and grab them and just give them a kiss and press them up and give them a kiss and press them up on one foot. And then everybody can just have a great time. So you do that for your balance and do about 30 seconds on each side. And yeah, do that every day. Just challenge yourself in that way in your pelvic floor. And the alignment of everyone can sit down now. Thank you for getting up and indulging me here. Oh, and I wanted to say also, with the hormones, to piggyback a little bit, there are actually times when you would train differently based on your 28-day cycle. So, for example, during the luteal phase, which ovulation phase, or right around that 2-week, right after that 2 weeks, is a great time to do high-intensity training, precision work, and agility work. Because that's the time you also have all that great energy. You feel like the warrior woman, and you're just like, I can kill it. But once you're going into your period, and during your period, you'd want to do a little bit more of a work-in kind of a workout, maybe some more mobility-focused, yoga, Pilates, things like that. And also, when you go into menopause, you really shouldn't, because your hormones everything's changing so much. It's best to do high-intensity training only for about 20 minutes, 3 times a week, 2 to 3 times a week. And then your strength training should be done at a separate time than with your high-intensity training. And with the Eldoas, which I'm going to plug that in again because really it's the best thing anyone could ever do. And with the Eldoas, it does help with strength. So it creates the mobility, flexibility in the body, and the strength as well. Because if your body is in alignment and working with gravity instead of against it, with the rounded shoulders and everybody's like this with their phones now, so look at my head, like this. And I'm working all the time. You're actually using a lot more energy to keep yourself upright against gravity. So yeah, so there's some great resources on my social media for a couple of the Aldoas. I do demonstrate them there, and also on YouTube that you can take a look at and learn how to do those. And one of the Aldoas, you put your legs up the wall and you're lying down on your back on the ground. And just doing that by itself without the full Aldoa was really great to take pressure off of the lower back and also to stretch out the back of your legs, and a lot of people need that. So, all right, yeah, a lot of people. So yeah, that's. Oh, it's ELDOA, and it's a French acronym that I can't say, but in English it's called LOADS, and it's longitudinal. Oh my goodness, this is a test. Longitudinal articular decoaptation stretches. It's a mouthful. Woo! I know. And the French is like, oh, something. I can't even do the French accent, but I mean, they're really, truly amazing, especially because they have the visceral response to the organs. They can help with digestion, with sleep, and to get water, especially the fascia. I mean, the fascia, which is, you know, it's kind of a buzzword, but seeing what it does. There's a great film that a doctor was able to get underneath, under your skin to see what's going on, and you see the fascia as this beautiful web-like structure that has like the little molecules of water, and that's that's the link from top of the head all the way to the bottom. And when the fascia dries out, that creates aging, and that creates a dehydration, and we are made up of 73% water, so we do need to get water to go through, because once you dry up, well, that's when we all die, because no water. So, need that water.
Thank you very much, Leila.
Thank you for having me.
In the spirit of thanking you, I also want to say we are now out of time. If you have questions, why don't you come up and see us personally? I think you can stay around for a few minutes. Would that be? And we can put the questions on the website, so that if you have questions or want to see what questions other people have asked, please do. But we committed to a certain amount of time, and we are out. So thank you. It will be on the website. Yeah.
So they're asking me about your social media handles are.
Oh. Is it on the website too?
No, it's
No, but it's the social media.
We'll add your social media to the Drive website, but if you'll just verbally say.
Oh, okay. It's really long, forgive me. It's called Sculpted Physiques by Leila, but you can also find me Leila Harper, personal trainer in Austin. You should be able to find me that way as well. And feel free to message me if you have questions, or if you want an example or of the Aldoas, or myofascial stretches if you're having problems, because they do help with also period pain, so many joint issues, because it decompresses and it gives space to the joints. And fascia basically is just connective tissue. It's connecting everything. And the Aldoas and the myofascial stretch, it gives space to your joints. So if you're having pain in your hip, it will save you from having surgeries. It will save you from knee pain, all of it. So yeah, feel free to just message me. Thank you.
Thanks very much. You've been a wonderful audience.
You can go ahead and go if you would. Thank you. Can we get another round of applause for our speakers, please? Thank you so much. All All right, well that concludes our day. We're so appreciative of you guys being here. We wanted to end on a fun note by drawing for our door prize. So if Shalana Poole will join me on stage. I'm the door prize? Yes, you physically are the door prize. No, Shalana represents Flashpoint Financial, which was the sponsor who made our vendor fair possible this year. So thank you to Flashpoint Financial. We are just going to really quickly draw that name and see who the winner was. And I'm so glad you guys are all here because you have to be present to win. So, all right, so we have the bowl here. Let's go ahead and draw that name.
I don't have my glasses on, but I know this says Frances Meir.
Yay! Okay. Oh, is she here? Oh, I'll give it to her. She just walked out. We'll make the rules. She can have it. So we'll run down and get it to her. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Shalana. Thank you, Flashpoint Financial. All right. So that concludes the day. Thank you to our virtual audience. We appreciate you being here. For our in-person audience, please make sure to take the notebooks on your table. Those were generously donated by HEB, who is our presenting sponsor this year. And as you walk out, there's a takeaway table with a jar of She Thrives affirmations that we'd love for you to take with you to have some words of encouragement and inspiration every day that you can look at. There's also a signed copy of Steve Harper's book, The Ripple Effect, that we'd love for you guys to have. And then finally, there are surveys on your table. We would really appreciate your feedback on ways to make this event better in the future. So if you don't mind taking just a moment or two to fill out, and you can leave the completed surveys on your table. Thank you guys so much. ageshethrives.com is where you can go to find more information moving forward. And I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.